Jesuit school throws Christian student under the Catholic school bus. Next on Campus Roundup. Hello, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Campus Roundup at the College Fix. Our top story segment today focuses on Catholic universities and drag queens. We have with us today to talk more about this Maria Lenke, a student at Franciscan University of Steubenville, Ohio, and a reporter for the College Fix. Maria, talk a little bit about your article. What's happening at John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio?
Yes, so Declan Leary, a student at John Carroll University, wrote an article for the John Carroll News, basically criticizing that the school is having a drag show because they are a Catholic university. And he said that if they have a drag show, they can't really call themselves Catholic. And so he wrote this article going against them, but many students are upset, and they're saying that what Declan said is hate speech and that he should apologize for the article.
Now give us the student's name again. Declan
Leary.
Declan Leary. And this is really interesting because I happened to go to John Carroll University back in the 80s and early 90s, got a master's degree there as well. And even then at the time, you could sort of see that it was a Catholic school that was in some ways ashamed of its Catholic heritage. With what's going on the campus there, and we see this at Christian schools all across the country, why is it that to criticize any aspect of the progressive, often very anti-Christian agenda on a Christian campus gets you into trouble, but there doesn't seem to be anybody from a Christian point of view who's speaking up for this kid's right to speak, even if you disagree with him?
Yes, I completely agree with you. You know, the left preaches tolerance so much, but on the other hand, they cannot tolerate people with different opinions than them. It's very sad. I know that Declan has said that some students have silently come and supported him, but the majority of criticisms that he's received have been angry.
Very angry, and it's a question of journalism, because it's not just the student who's facing the Title IX wrath of John Carroll University. It's also the student newspaper who published Declan's opinion. The student editor is being called into these Title IX meetings as well. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And the student editor, her name is Olivia Shackleton. And she actually wrote a piece after Declan's article came out saying that she published it because she believes in freedom of speech and that people have the right to say their own opinions. But yes, she is getting criticism as well.
Tell me about your efforts to research this. As with almost all the articles the College Fix does, beautiful pieces we write. The journalists are fantastic, people like you, but the schools never want to talk to you. Is that what happened in your case as well?
Well, yes, for the most part, usually when I do articles, the students, Declan Leary was very easy to respond to my messages. He wrote back right away to all of the questions that I sent him, but the school did not give me responses.
Well, talk a little bit about Declan's opinion. Share with us some of the salient points of criticism that this student voiced. And look, he's a Catholic kid at a Catholic school, right? So in a way, you would think that institutionally they would side with him. And he, at the very least, is expressing an opinion that is valid on a college campus, a Catholic college campus, even if you wouldn't think it would be valid on a public school university campus. But tell me a little bit about what were the main points he made in his argument.
Yes, the main points that Declan made in his argument was basically that drag shows go against human dignity, and it is a deviant behavior, and it does go against the Catholic Church. So why would a Catholic school allow something that directly contradicts the beliefs? And if they do allow drag shows, then they shouldn't call themselves Christian anymore. Yeah,
and it's interesting. I mean, you can disagree with that opinion, but certainly there are 2,000 years of church history where you could make an argument. And even today, when you think about the positions of the Catholic Church, John Carroll University is a Jesuit university, and the Jesuits, of course, are known as the sort of more progressive, radical organization in the Catholic Church. But still, it's a little bit puzzling to me. Under the aegis of Title IX, so you clearly have a Title IX administrator at John Carroll University, paying a lot of money to people on college campuses all across this country to simply watch what's happening with Title IX on the campus. But there doesn't seem to be any Department of Religious Outreach or Theology, no Department of Orthodoxy on John Carroll's campus that would allow another pro-Christian, in a way, viewpoint weigh in on this. And that seems to be very unbalanced, especially when parents are paying, what, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year to attend a school like JCU.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's very imbalanced. And this isn't the first time that the drag shows have caused controversy. In 2013, a student protested by praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and one of the priests was offended by some of the remarks that he made, suggesting that it's a sinful act.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at John Carroll University all those years ago, there were almost no priests there. There was almost no theological or Christian presence. There was no church hierarchy around. It was, for all intents and purposes, what I like to call these schools are Christian schools with crosses or crucifixes in the classrooms. I'm not even sure they do that anymore, and very little else that would suggest any real Christian heritage. Last thing I wanted to ask you about researching this article is, what does it say, and what are your thoughts on the future of education when even organizations that self-identify as Christian, that market themselves to unsuspecting parents as Christian-friendly environments for their kids, then when the kids get there, they get what is basically a secular education on steroids? How do you think we square that circle?
Well, I think that is absolutely terrifying that this is happening, of course, in today's society. And I think that parents and students that are applying for colleges need to be more aware of really researching, is this truly a Catholic school, or is it only Catholic in name? That's something that I did when I was researching the college that I go to, and I chose to go to a very Catholic university.
I think you make a really important point here. It's not even, look, if you want to be a secular institution, be one. If you want to be in a university that argues that its historical basis is in Catholicism, but you've moved beyond it, do it. But you ought to at least let students and parents know that if their kids show up taking seriously their faith, they're going to have a hard time that the administration is not going to stand by them.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Maria, we certainly appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you very much for your article, too. It's an important story. We will talk to you again soon, I'm sure. All right, now I want to shift to Talking Campus, our weekly discussion with members of the College Fix editorial team. Today I'm joined by College Fix assistant editor Daniel Payne to continue this conversation about why is it so difficult for Catholic colleges and Christian universities to defend actual Christian values. Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
Dude, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, as I mentioned to Maria, John Carroll University is my alma mater. I got my undergraduate degree and a master's degree there, and this is late 80s, early 90s, and I remember being at John Carroll University. That's where this is a Jesuit Catholic university. This is where it dawned on me that I was being manipulated to the left. It was in college. I was a pretty typical kid, apolitical. I didn't think much about elections. I don't even know if I had voted by that time. But it was somewhere about my sophomore year, it dawned on me, why am I starting to say really radical left-wing things that I don't believe? And that's what happened at the college I attended to, and this is the same college we're dealing with here. Do you have any ideas? Why is it that our Christian schools are actively working against the values that the founders and the boards of those schools practice?
Well, first of all, as you said, John Carroll is a Jesuit university, and they have their own sort of special history with that sort of activism. So you kind of have to take that into account as well. But in general, yes, you do see, Catholic and Christian universities more generally are susceptible to the same sort of left-wing indoctrination and bias that secular universities are, public and private. And I think really what that just shows is that there's nothing innate about Christianity that's going to protect it from that type of insidious political manipulation. To guard against that, you need to have people who are committed to it, who are committed to guiding their students in the proper direction, and educating their students on the actual tenets of Christianity and why so much of what is preached on other campuses is wrong. And if you just have administrators and faculty who aren't willing to do that, it's just going to end up looking like any other college.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you mentioned about the Jesuits. Jesuits are sort of the liberation theology radicals of the Catholic Church. But, of course, as you said, we saw places like Marquette University where John McAdams was fired. It took an act of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin to put McAdams back in his job after he was fired simply for defending a Marquette student who was pro-traditional marriage. And the thing about me, I remember back at John Carroll, even in the late 1980s, I had one Jesuit priest teacher the whole time I was there. There were no other Jesuit faculty. There were no nuns there. The faculty was almost 99.9% secular. And they really got off on, if you will. They got off on the idea that they were teaching us anti-Catholic values. That became a really selling point for the faculty. In a way, it's the pluralism of the Catholic Church that's killing it, right? We Catholic churches, the Catholic schools, they hire a lot of non-Catholic faculty from radically diverse backgrounds because they want to honor diversity of opinion and idea, and yet you bring them in and they immediately start undermining Catholic tradition and the Catholic faith from within.
Yeah, and the problem is that the Catholic Church has spent centuries building up this incredible educational infrastructure from, kindergarten all the way through graduate school. And they've done wonderful things with that over the decades and centuries. But at this point, so much of that system and network has been overtaken by, like you said, it's not priests, it's not nuns, it's largely secular folks who do delight in undermining so much of what the Catholic Church has built up. So, another thing that needs to happen is that priests and parishes and bishops need to get more vigilant about protecting the faith in one of the areas where it matters most, which is education. And if you don't have administrators and clergy willing to do that, then it's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a local bishop here in the Green Bay area, and one of the schools under him, one of the Catholic schools in his area, St. Norbert's College, he has had a nonstop battle with it because they're pro-abortion and they're bringing in all these anti-religious speakers. And those kids who have faith and speak out about it or complain about this, they're marginalized. And what happened at John Carroll University is unconscionable to me. The university sponsors or helps to allows a drag show on campus. And one young man decides to speak out in the name of his Catholic heritage. And the university immediately put him in a Title IX investigation. And you have all these kids at a Catholic school who are screaming for him to be silenced, if not expelled, for daring to express an opinion that challenged something that the Catholic Church itself, in theory, still opposes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about a drag show and about the culture it sort of brings along with it and represents that the church should nominally, at the very least, not be allowing on its campus. The fact that this is something that occurs yearly, this isn't just a one-time thing. It's a regularly scheduled event that has been happening for several years. The fact that it happens at all is bizarre, and the fact that this student was called into a Title IX office for speaking out against it is equally bizarre. And moreover, what we learned is that he's also going to be meeting with the president of the university, and I think a few vice presidents or deans as well. So there's been this response that is out of proportion just in a general sense, and even on a Catholic campus, it just doesn't make any sense.
And if the Catholic hierarchy, if our Christian hierarchies, church hierarchies, can't be bothered to intervene on behalf of Christian schools, then they deserve to go away. Daniel Payne, it has been a great pleasure to speak with you today, and I know we'll see you again soon down the road. And as I mentioned to Daniel and Maria, I was a student at John Carroll University through my undergraduate degree and up until my master's degree, 1991-92. And I must say, it was at this very expensive private Jesuit school that I learned that I was really being manipulated. I paid for John Carroll myself. I took out very few student loans. I don't think I actually took out any student loans, and paid for it myself with some grants and some other things. I was working 40, 50 hours a week. But I remember sitting in a classroom my sophomore year, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was writing things and saying things that I didn't believe in, and everything I was saying was slanted left. And that was the minute I realized that even on a so-called Catholic college campus, that the faculty themselves were engaging in tremendous amounts of overt and implicit and explicit indoctrination, that the way they were moving us, the way they were framing discussions and asking questions, the way they were writing tests to seek certain kinds of exams on essay exams, certain kind of results, it really bothered me. And that was the moment I moved away from the political left. And every subsequent year since then, all through my PhD, all through the jobs that I taught at the university level to where I am today, every year it gets worse. The politicization gets more and heavier. And as far as Catholic schools go, I'm not the least bit bothered when Catholic universities want to invite homosexual activists or transgender activists. They want to have a drag show. I can accept that up until the point at which those kids, those Catholic kids, Catholic mom and dads who are paying these universities, when those kids express their right to protest this or to exercise their right as Catholics at a Catholic school to object on theological or biblical concerns, when the universities hang those kids out to dry. If you want to demonstrate as a Catholic university how pluralistic, open-minded, and committed to alternative views you are, that's great. But in doing that, don't lose sight of the views of the Catholic families who are paying your salaries. And that's the Final Fix. Be sure to stay up on all the latest news and information from the College Fix by joining us on all of our social media platforms. For the Campus Roundup, I'm Dr. Duke, and we will see you next time.